Hey fellow Otakus, we are here today to discuss chapter 211 of Tokyo Revengers, and a massive impactful event that happened at the end of the chapter. But before we get into the review, don't forget to like the video, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell. Now, onto the chapter. This week's chapter is titled The Law of the Jungle, and it is a theme that will be shown throughout the chapter, especially of the certain characters' thoughts. Chapter begins with Draken, Takemichi and Inupi being shown surrounded by Terano South and the Rokuhara Tendai. Takemichi first of all comments on how many people are surrounding them, noting that this is Rokuhara Tendai. We then see Draken asking Inupi if he's good. Inupi responds, yeah, kinda. We then see Draken's response to Terano South's question from the end of last chapter, and his request to join his gang. Draken responds, no matter how many times you ask, my answer will always be the same, South. I will never join Rokuhara Tendai. South shows no emotion initially to this response, before we briefly switch back to Takemichi's viewpoint on how huge Terano South is, how he is Rokuhara Tendai's top dog. Draken continues, I've already retired. That said, I don't want to be involved in whatever business you guys are up to. South shouts back, retired? Oi, Draken. Draken is then shocked before South shouts forte and hits him across the face. Takemichi is bemused by this, shouting in shock at seeing Draken fly away from a hit. Inupi also calls out to Draken here. We then see an enraged South say, I'll never forgive you if you decide to retire, Draken. We focus in on his eye, which is showing veins pulsing through it. He continues, then why was Tokyo Manjigan called the strongest? Draken climbs back to his feet. He calls South out for his attitude, before South continues again, saying forte, as he this time strikes Draken in the ribs, lifting Draken off his feet. Takemichi is again shocked by this, before we see what appears to be a demonized South say fortissimo, as he again strikes Draken to the ground. Takemichi is truly scared at this point, thinking, are you kidding me? Isn't this unfair? I mean, Draken has retired and it's over with fighting. During these sequence of panels, we see what appears to be a knocked out Draken briefly, for one of the very few times in the series that this is even a thing. We switch back to a highly line art drawn South, who is once again commented on being a monster. South continues, an era for the delinquents, we share the same ideals about that, so I came to Tokyo just to defeat the Tokyo Manji gang. To have you retire now is unforgivable. The strongest stays the strongest even after they got eaten and killed. It's a dog eat dog world out there. This panel of South is so well drawn. The line art, the veins popping from his head. Every single aspect of this shows what his attitude to what is going on around him right now. To Draken's response to the words that he's hearing, as well as especially to his feelings towards the state of the world and the state of delinquency as whole. His enraged state is really fitting for the title of the chapter. The law of the jungle is something which is often talked about, especially in fighting series or in series where there is a dark world or a dark undercurrent. And what we see here from South is the perfect representation of somebody who believes in the law of the jungle, somebody who believes in the dog eat dog world and the state that it brings. But back to the chapter. South continues, work under me or die right here now. That's the only choice you got, Draken. His anger seems to subside temporarily as he attempts to smile at Takemichi, saying, what do you say, former 1st Division Captain? Takemichi is shocked, responding, huh? Me? South continues, what's with that innocent face, as if you don't got anything to do with this, before his face switches back from the grimace that he was showing before, to one of complete anger and veins popping again as he approaches Takemichi and says, you're next. Takemichi begins to go into a state of fear here, screaming in his head, no, hold on, I just time-leaped here and now I'm in huge trouble already? But before this can continue and South can come towards Takemichi any further, we hear a massive sound in the background, which South turns around to hear as he sees one of his men being thrown to the ground. Takemichi flinches at this once again, saying, a dude just flew right in front of me, before we see somebody call out to South. South responds, oh come on man, don't ruin the fun, Brahmin. This person turns out to be the Brahmin number 2, and the Black Dragon's 1st generation vice president, Akashi Takeyomi. Akashi says, don't go off and act like you're the big guy, you should take notice of people around you. Now let's pause here for a second to consider this man's title again. He's the Black Dragon's 1st gen vice president. That means that this is the person who was second in command to Shinichiro when he was in charge of the Black Dragons. The implication of this will be huge in the story moving forward. This person will have a huge impact and will probably have a very well established relationship with Mikey and Draken and possibly many other original members of Tokyo Manjigan. We know how much the Black Dragons meant to Shinichiro, and we know how much the original Shinichiro Black Dragons meant to Mikey. Akashi Takeyomi could very well be the new crucial figure for the story, and the plot that drives us forward from now on. To round out the final parts of the chapter, we see a great 2-page spread, which is of Brahmin approaching where Otaku Haratanda has now come to attack. We then get to see a great face-off between this new Brahmin number 2 and Talano South, and we see Takemichi calling out how there are now 2 out of the 3 deities are here. The tagline for this chapter is, "And in an instant, the situation became a confrontation among the superiors of Tokyo. Is this the start of the Great War?" And there we have this huge cliffhanger that we end this week's chapter on. We now have 2 of the 3 deities appearing, and appearing to be about to go head to head with one another. The reveal of Akashi Takeyomi, though, for me, is an even more important moment. That title as Black Dragon's first gen vice president, as I said before, cannot be forgotten. We know full well how important the Black Dragons first gen are to the story, whether it be what happened during Valhalla, Black Dragons, Tenjiku. We know that there was always an underlying current of some kind of deviation or relation to the original Black Dragons. Akashi Takeyomi could very well hold all of the answers that Takemichi needs for what he needs to do to go up against Mikey. He could be the very person that knows what Mikey is seeking. He could be the person that knows more details about what Mikey has been up to. He could be the person that gives Takemichi the answers that he needs to fight Mikey. The fact that we have what is possibly about to be a huge clash between 2 of the 3 deities, and there is still another massive reveal in this chapter, just shows the level of intensity and the pacing that we're getting at the moment. The pacing feels much faster than what we've seen in other arcs. The characters that are being introduced here seem to hold a lot more relevance to what's going to go on with Mikey in the future, or know exactly what we need to know about Mikey from the past. The tie-ins and how everything is being related are being so intricately weaved together, and the story just seems to feel like it's elevating one level once again. For me, every arc of Tokyo Revengers has been better than the last, and the premise for this arc, as well as this build-up that we've seen and this first initial clash that we are seeing here, appears to be the best first clash we have had for any arc. Tokyo Revengers is truly heading in a strong direction, and I can't wait to see what we will get next week. And there we have my review of Tokyo Revengers chapter 211. Please leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, and don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and click that notification bell. Peace to all.